Welcome, everyone, to the Midnight Charrette podcast, hosted by myself, David Lee, and Marina Bordeaux-Renee, La France, Les Miserables. All right, so we have this hotline, right? And we're very excited about it. It's launched. We're going to make some promo videos. The hotline number is 213-222-6950. I figure that's easy to remember. 213 is close to 212, but it's not. What? Come on.
I always said 212, so that's why I'm not ever remembering.
It's close to 212. It's like the cousin
Secret
of 212,
line.
the cousin that doesn't do so well, in life. That's the 213 as the 212. And the 222 is easy to remember, and the 69 is easy to remember because of sex, and 50, well, that's half a century. I mean, can't forget the half a century. So that's the number. Call in for any comments, questions, whatever. And we've gotten a few calls so far. To the first few people that called in, sorry for the delay. We've been swamped trying to catch up with things for various recordings. But one of them we want to talk about today on the show. It's on the longer side, but I think there's a lot of different aspects that this person is asking that will apply to many people. And so what happened first is this young woman reached out to us via Instagram, and we had a short conversation, and then she left a voicemail to kind of follow up on her situation and provide a little more detail. But essentially, she's looking to go to an undergraduate architecture school, and she's looking into IPAL, the integrated what is it called?
Path to Architecture Licensure.
Right, which is a new program that's being offered in select undergraduate schools to basically provide, as it says, an integrated path toward licensure. And she has questions about that. But let me play the first portion of the voicemail, and then we can get into it. Yeah?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, here we go.
Hi, guys. This is Keisha Jackson. I sent you a message on Instagram earlier this week. I just wanted to give a bit more insight into who I am. I was born in the U.S., but I actually grew up in the Caribbean. And I knew from a very young age that I wanted to study architecture, but my family didn't really support it. So eventually, I kind of made the radical move to come back to the U.S. to study architecture. And now I'm 23, will be turning 24 in January next year. So I kind of felt like I was behind in terms of like the normal American system where most students graduate at 22. That's why I was considering taking the IPAL program to kind of like catch up. Because if you add 5 years to me starting next year, I'll be graduating at 29.
Yeah. All right. So that's the first part. There's I kind of broke this up into three different pieces. So basically, right, she's going to undergraduate school soon, and maybe we should talk about the IPAL program a little bit more. So if you go to NCARB's website.
Dear NCARB's website.
If you just Google IPAL NCARB, you should find it, and there's 5 different pages, and they explain what IPAL is, sort of. It's we looked at it briefly. We have the tabs open right now. It's fairly generic speak, but I think it's interesting because, at least for me, her phone call made me realize that as a person who's about to enter architecture school, you know nothing about the profession or how to get a license, how you get licensed and all that stuff. And so I could very easily see where this IPAL, this integrated path thing, could be very appealing to someone who knows nothing about it. And especially for someone who's on their own and is looking for as much, built-in support as they can get. NCARB, the National Council of Architecture Registration
Board.
It's something, right? They're the ones who are in charge of. They're the organization in charge of keeping the architectural experience record, which you need to complete, architectural experience program, which you need to complete to take the exams. So they're the organization that you interface with for licensure, for IPAL, and for basically that's it, right? And a few other things. to be honest, their organization is widely regarded as kind of just a big fuck up by most of the architecture community. There's like yearly fees once you get further on, and no one knows where their money goes toward. You know, their help service is kind of a shit, and there's a lot of aspects about them that the architecture community is not happy with.
I mean, each exams is like $200.
And
right.
As of right now, we will do a recording in the future about the AREs, their exams. So if you have questions about that, then you should call in. But right now there are 6 exams you have to take based on the latest 5.0, latest release version of the AREs, the architecture. I don't even know what the stand for. Architecture registration
exams. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Oh.
I just take them. I don't pay attention.
Amazing.
I went and went up to one of the exams, and the woman was like, "Which one are you taking?" I'm like, PDP, P, and she's like, "You don't even know what test you're taking." I'm like, "Yeah, don't you have my name in there?" Anyway, so let me see.
Well, you have a little summary here, right? That's to me, I mean, like you said, when you don't know anyone in the field and that's the only information you rely on to decide which way you want to go, I think it's not really clear or explanatory, and it also doesn't explain the other path that you can take if you do not take IPAL.
Of course, they're trying to sell to.
So that's what I don't really like about this IPAL like marketing bullshit, is that it's really like, let's put a cool name and call it something, but I'm not really going to tell you like what it is and how that might help you or actually might not make any difference. According to NCARB's website, it is a dynamic offer and innovative path to licensure for students who are dedicated to becoming an architect. So if you're a student who's not dedicated to becoming an architect, but you're going to architecture school, that's not for you.
All right, calm down. Let's go through it first.
I mean, by integrating the opportunity to gain the real-world experience necessary to complete
but you
your
don't need to
AXP.
read it that way. God, read it as if you're an NCARB representative. Sell it to us.
IPAL offers a dynamic, innovative path to licensure for students who are dedicated to becoming an architect. By integrating the opportunity to gain the real-world experience necessary to complete the AXP and ensuring that each IPAL student can take all 6 divisions of the ARE, students who graduate from IPAL options will be eligible for licensure soon after graduation. And then they have a little quote from somebody. So apparently the system launched in 2016, right? And there has been 26 students participating in this program.
Yeah, that's according to North Carolina State University. So let's break down some really simple things. The AREs is the abbreviation for the exams, right? AXP is the Architecture Experience Program, which is hosted and maintained, etc., by NCARB. So in order to get licensed, there's a couple different paths. First path is, it just depends on what undergraduate school you go to. If you go to a 5-year degree school, 5-year school, which is an accredited program, NAAB, NAB approved, accredited, then that allows you to immediately finish the AXP, the experience program, take the exams, and you're licensed. Now, each state has their own specific additional stipulations. So like in California, there's an additional exam, so it varies, but that's the baseline, right?
Well, you have to you complete your AXP after school. You're not going to get your 2,500 hours or whatever it is during school.
You can. That's the whole point of IPAL. But that's jumping ahead. So that's the thing, right? That's the path. Is you have this experience, the AXP, the AREs. There's 6 exams now, and then you're licensed, more or less, right? And
depending on the state, right?
Yeah,
because to be licensed, you also have to have certain years of experience in the state.
As I said, it varies from state to state. So that should clarify things. And they go on to list some benefits of being an IPAL student. By integrating the education, experience, and examination requirements of licensure, IPAL helps students prepare for life after college by 1. Connecting education to current architectural practice. Well, okay, yeah. Let me just go through these before we... Sorry. Jumpstarting their careers with work experience and networking, making students eligible for licensure after graduation by completing licensure requirements, opening up career opportunities through licensure, helping students manage the financial burden of earning a degree, both by interweaving paid employment opportunities around academic requirements and by qualifying them for higher paying positions. So, as far as I can tell, some of you might be listening and thinking, okay, but what does the program actually do for me? Does it mean I have to put in less experience? Does it help set up internships? Does it cover the cost of exams? To the latter point, as far as I know, it doesn't cost to cover exams. It costs to cover the cost of exams. If anything, it later on says on another part of their website that where does it say? It says that IPAL doesn't cost anything, but it may cost more for this.
NCARB does not charge a fee for participating in IPAL. Students may encounter extra costs. Students will also need to pay the fees associated with NCARB's AXP and ARE programs.
Right, so it doesn't provide any kind of discount. And as far as what they say, it could actually cost you more money. I don't know how much that is, so we really can't use that as a critique against them, let's say.
But it's not saving you any money, basically.
It's not saving you any money. I mean, as far as I can tell, the only thing it's doing is like it would, if you enroll, it would kind of further encourage you to get your AXP and your AREs done sooner. It's kind of like going to the gym, right? If you sign up for a gym membership, you're going to go. As far as I can tell, it's the same thing, right?
But there is nothing that stops you from doing internship, like not enroll into IPAL, do internship during your vacation, like during school, get you hours through that, and then finish it once you graduate and keep working for a little bit.
100%. You could do the same exact thing on your own. It's not like by being part of this program that you're allowed to do AXP sooner. You can work at an office and fulfill your AXP requirements as soon as you have graduated from high school or have an equivalent degree. So there are other things that they list, like if you're part of the IPAL system, you have like an IPAL coordinator or whatever, and then you also are signed up with some kind of professional architect or this or that. But to be honest, it all sounds like fluff to me. And the thing too is this IPAL coordinator, director, whatever position, they might be great, right? You might be at an institution, a university where they're going to really like get it and help you, but if I had to bet money on it, I would guess they're not going to be very good.
Especially if they're provided by NCARB.
Well, the thing is, like, there's so many points. One of the points that we made when we wrote back to this person is that when you graduate from undergraduate school and you are practicing, everyone's trying to fulfill their AXP requirements, and everyone's trying to get licensed. And all the firms know this, and most of the firms have support material. They have study materials, almost all the study materials you could need, especially if it's a big firm. They have everything you could possibly want. They have sessions and work groups within the office, and the amount of information you're going to get once you're practicing is so abundant. And people actually know what the fuck they're talking about because they actually practice, and people have actually gone through it, are going through it right now, or recently did it. In undergraduate school, it's really hard to find that kind of support system because it's not the place for it. You have 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 21-year-olds who did a few internships. You have professors who, maybe some of them are serious practitioners, but a lot of professors, realistically, they aren't. If you're practicing, though, and that's what you do full time, you are surrounded by people who are in the same boat as you. And that is a huge thing.
And your friends from school, too, like maybe your office doesn't have the materials to study, but your friends who someone else has it. And, that's also how you help out each other after school, to get through those things. And
the study materials for the AREs is a big chunk of this kind of equation, right? This process. And how do you get those study materials? Because they're quite expensive. I don't know if IPAL provides these things. I highly doubt it because most of the study, actually they don't. I can say for sure because the study materials that everyone uses are by third-party companies, meaning they're private companies or groups or people that produce their own materials, right? And NCARB doesn't. So they're the ones who host the exam, but they didn't provide study materials, right? Which it makes sense, but it's somewhat contradictory. But anyway, so that's another thing that the IPAL's not offering. I don't think they're going to offer you like free PDFs of, the 500-page books you need to read to study.
Yeah, and I mean, even the thing they're saying, like jumpstarting the career with work experience and networking. Well, even if you're not in IPAL, you should still, during your 5 years in school, you should still like try and reach out to firms, trying to make connection on your own, trying to do internships. Like, they're not gonna give you a list of offers of internship. I'm sure you still have to like go and find it yourself. So they're kind of like promising you that if you do IPAL, once you graduate, you're going to find a paid job. No, nobody can promise you that. Like,
so there's
and it's not because you didn't go through IPAL that you're not going to find one. It's a little misleading.
So the first point of connecting education to current architectural practice, that is such a big stretch to say. First of all, we've said this before, there's a big issue, there's a huge problem with trying to shove in professional practice and professional expertise and knowledge into an undergraduate 5-year program. There's huge problems with that because philosophically, what you're meant to be learning in undergraduate school in architecture is the fundamentals of architectural design, or basically design. First year, and so first year to a lot of people is quite shocking because they think they're going to come in and design buildings with doors and windows, and they end up doing like weird colored schemes, weird massing projects. They end up like dancing and drawing sketches based on like anthropomorphic dimensions and all this weird shit, and it's so far from what people think of architecture is, it confuses them. But that's the fundamentals of design. And so, in other words, it takes about 5 years before you really build up that strong foundation of knowledge. And there is really not a lot of time in school for anything else other than that. And in the past, many institutions, when they try to introduce more professional knowledge into the program, it ends up having actually a very negative effect because it in a way, it allows students end up kind of jumping over learning the fundamentals of architectural design and the creative thinking, the kind of thinking you're supposed to have to change the world and stuff. They jump over that to what the profession is currently, right? And that 5 years is meant to be you expanding and defining your creative brain. And if you skip over that and you go to what an existing practice is doing, then you've missed out on the opportunity to do something amazing and to think for your own.
I mean, I think it's good. Like you should do internship while you're in school just to see eventually where you're going to be at the end. Because if you go through school and you have no idea what it is to work in an office after, it's kind of like, okay, went like, blindfolded.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely. And so the integration of those two, the education of design and the architectural practice, is a very tricky thing. And what happens most of the time, though, is it's done kind of stupidly. And again, it just ends up young people who are fresh, who have a new perspective of the world and are thirsty and hungry, end up being molded into what the existing system is or existing idea of architecture is.
Yeah. But what they're saying here, connecting education to current architecture practices, that's kind of bullshit. I mean, it's not because you have two things happening concurrently that they necessarily connect.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The time you're going to do your hours for your AXP, while you're in school, is not necessarily going to overlap with anything you're doing in school. So I think this is kind of a big statement.
Yeah.
And it's wrong.
Yeah,
again, I feel like, it's like somebody who's trying to sell me something, they will formulate things a certain way, so it sounds appealing to me and reassuring, but it's not what it says it is.
And the thing is, the AXP is broken down to different categories. So I don't know how many hours of experience you need to have. I'll just make up around, let's call it 2,000. I'm sure it's more than that, but, you need to have 2,000 hours of work experience to fulfill the AXP. Well, it's not all the same experience. You can't have 2,000 hours of drawing bathrooms. There's different categories of experience you have to have. And you are absolutely right that some of that experience is like project management, right? Well, that,
You're not going to review submittals.
That's like later on in your career. And, if you're going to a 5-year program and let's say studios twice a week, sometimes 3 days a week, you have other classes and stuff. You can maybe at best work sort of part-time, during the school year and then full-time during the summer. But I don't foresee many offices being like, okay, we'll give you some project management experience when you're a 4th year in undergrad school. So there is definitely for sure a misalignment between the AXP, the experience that you're supposed to be gaining, like actual experience, so assuming you don't kind of lie and cheat, and what you're doing in school, like they're two different phases in the life of being an architect. And saying you can just have them happen at the same time and it's all fine and dandy is, one, doing a disservice to the education, I think, and potentially very dangerous. And two, as you said, it's just not the truth of the detailed matter.
Well, and so North Carolina State University says that in 2016, there's been 26 students doing that IPAL program, right? And only 2 of them were able to pass all of their ARE exam and complete their AXP hours. That's to tell you it's 2 people, and these 2 people probably like work a ton for firms when they were in school to get all of this done, because we did our AXP hours after we graduated from school, and it took us like a couple years working full time.
Yeah, and I know we're jumping around a lot, and it's tough to not, because there's so many different facets to this. But the other concern that was brought up by Keisha, right, that called in, was that, I want to do this program, or it sounds good because it allowed me to kind of get ahead, or catch up rather, to the kids who are younger than me. And that leads into what you're saying about completing experience after you graduate. For most architects or architectural graduates, rather, you're going to put more than 40 hours in a week. And if you seek out the right experience you need to fulfill the AXP, then you'll complete your AXP hours pretty quickly. I mean, some people do it in like a year because they're working so much. I'm not recommending that. I'm not saying it's going to be the case for you, but the point is it can happen very quickly. Now, taking the AREs is a whole different beast, and to be honest, I think trying to do AXP and the AREs during the 5-year program is a massive mistake. Don't try and do it. It takes a certain amount of time to become a licensed architect, a legitimate licensed architect, not someone who's cheated the system to try and get it done as soon as possible. I mean, you could do that and you have your license, but you don't get anything. You don't gain anything from that. You don't have the knowledge. You don't have the experience. You're too young. And also, you don't get a raise when you get licensed. That doesn't happen.
Your life doesn't change.
It doesn't. So, jumpstarting their careers with work experience and networking, as you said, well, you could do that without IPAL. And I know of some IPAL programs and schools provide connections to firms and stuff, but to be honest, it's nothing you can do on your own. And a lot of those connections are I'm skeptical of them. And then they say, okay, making students eligible for licensure after graduating by completing licensure requirements. Well, again, that's not the IPAL. That's just you doing the AXP on your own. That,
and make sure that you pick a school that is accredited.
Right.
Because if it's not, then that's definitely going to slow down your process.
Well, the IPAL system program is only offered at accredited schools.
Okay.
Opening up career opportunities through licensure, not really. That won't happen. There's so many young architects, young designers who become architects, within the 1 to 4 year period after they graduate, and they all get paid the same pretty much. You do not get a raise because you're licensed in 99% of the situations.
And if you're 24 or you graduated and you're licensed, it's not going to make you much more desirable than someone that's been working for 15 years and who's not.
The thing is, there's so much professional knowledge to know about how a building gets put together, how to manage a project, how to deal with other consultants, how to work in the office, that the idea that you can expedite that process is really kind of silly. There's you can't,
Well, and the other thing too is I think it's a little premature in the life of an architect under development to make that decision. The other thing to consider is that not everyone who studies architecture and practice architecture on a day-to-day basis needs or wants to be a licensed architect.
Mm-hmm.
The first questions you have to ask yourself is, why do you want to become licensed? You don't necessarily need to. If you don't want to have your own practice, if you don't want to have responsibility and liability, it's really the first question. And it's totally fine if you don't do your licensing, if you're never going to have your own business, if you're never going to, it's okay.
Yeah, I would. There are kind of different phases you go through in this journey, and at each one you realize what kind of architect you want to be, because the field is very broad, as you're kind of suggesting, and you have to fully own and experience each of those phases to truly understand it. The first one is learning how to design in school, right? If you cut that short, then you haven't really understood it, right? The next one after you get out of school is what kind of firm you want to work at, what kind of work you want to do, if you want to become licensed or not. And you're kind of doing yourself a disservice if you don't allow yourself as a to-be architect to kind of fully experience these things as they truly are. Does that make sense, kind of?
Yeah.
You know? And then the fifth point they say is helping students manage the financial burden of earning a degree. So they're going to help you manage the financial burden of paying, having student loans of potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars by interweaving paid employment and opportunities around academic requirements. Basically, they're saying, from what I understand, is by doing internships, that's going to help pay off your financial debt. What the fuck are they talking about? Unless I'm misreading this, but if that's what they're saying, what the fuck are they talking about? No, it's not. Even when you graduate, right? Let's say you graduate and you have a license, you're going to make maybe $50,000 a year. I mean, I don't hate to throw out specific numbers, but say around there. You think that by being an intern during undergraduate school, that's going to help offset a financial burden? Fuck no. That's like drops in the bucket. And then by qualifying them for higher paying opportunities, as I said, no, not going to happen. Won't happen.
There's so many factors that it depends on, where you are trying to find a job, if there was a financial crisis in the country before or after.
I mean, maybe if you went through that experience, you get another 20 cents, but employers who have been around for a while, which most employers have, I mean, if look at the average architecture office who's actually doing buildings, not one of these young conceptual paper architecture offices. They only do installations and whatever nonsense. Like people who actually do buildings, right? Sorry, not to dismiss those younger people, but people who do buildings, they're all fucking old. They're old because it takes a long time to do a building to learn this stuff. And the people that are in those positions, the employers, they're not going to look at a 23-year-old and say, wow, they did AXP and they did their exams. I'm going to pay them more money because I trust them more. They're going to say, wow, that's impressive. I trust them a little bit more, but not really. Let's get you started at the typical wage and we'll see how you do. And then you'll realize you don't know much when you start.
Yeah, or they're gonna think like, okay, this person knows already the program, so I won't have to spend any time teaching them on how to use it, and I'm gonna pay them the same amount as someone who doesn't know. So I actually, don't spend more money. The
thing is, the reason why I think we're probably sounding a bit excited around this is I mean, I already knew of IPAL before this discussion, before Keisha reached out, and I had my opinions about it. But once I read some of their website text and how they speak, as you're pointing out, it really irks me because to someone who's not informed, this sounds like a great thing.
Yeah.
But the AXP and ARE journey is actually relatively straightforward. It's not easy, but it's pretty straightforward. You don't need this other system. The IPAL thing sounds to me kind of like... they're trying to pitch something for a problem that doesn't exist. Like I'm trying to think of. This is not a good example.
It's a way to forget all the problems about the AREs themselves.
Well, to redirect the conversation. It's kind of like, do you know the toothbrush company Quip? I actually kind of think they're interesting, but it's like, for those of you who don't know, Quip is a toothbrush company, and what they do is a subscription-based thing. You pay a monthly fee or whatever. It's like $1 a month. They send you an electronic toothbrush that has a disposable battery. It runs off a AA and has a toothbrush head, and you brush your teeth with it. It's an electronic toothbrush. It's not new.
But with a battery in it.
With a battery in it, and then they send you a new toothbrush head once a month or once every 2 months or whatever, right? And maybe it's cool, but I think for most people it's like, well, this is really... a lot of hoopla and marketing for really not much. It doesn't take a genius to know how to buy a new toothbrush when they need one or whatever. And the same thing here, like doing the AXP is not complicated. If you cannot go onto the NCARB website, enroll in AXP and fulfill the hours and based on the requirements and work at offices that qualify for the right experience and etc., then you should not be in charge of a building or anything else in life because it's really, really straightforward, right? And taking the exams is really straightforward. They're difficult tasks to complete, but they are straightforward. So if that's the case, then what role does IPAL have? Not much more than telling yourself, I'm going to sign up for a gym class to force myself to go to the gym.
What I don't like, again, like I said at the beginning, is that, NCARB is the entity that you have to deal with to take your exams, right? So it's a website where you should see what your options are, what's a different way to get where you want to get to. And the fact that they have a page that's all about IPAL, but really what they should tell you is, okay, if you want to get your IXP and your licensure done, here is 2 ways you can do it. You can do it through IPAL, you can do it this way. Explain clearly what each one does so people can make their own decision. And, it's a fair comparison. I don't know what the fuck this is about besides sending me their new iPad, whatever bullshit thing that they invented, and they try to pump the numbers on it and get some funding or whatever they're trying to do with that. It doesn't. I don't think it's fair, especially for people who do not know how things work.
But see, this is the thing: is this is produced and written by people who haven't gone through what we've gone through, or what all of our friends and colleagues have gone through. You wouldn't know. Like, we spoke with Keisha, and she was like, I didn't know that after I graduate, I'm going to be around all of these same people in the same boat, and there's a massive community. Well, you wouldn't know that unless you went through it. I don't think NCARB folks know this, right? But I'm telling you, when you are practicing as a young designer and you want to become an architect, that network is all around you. You're living in it, and there's no better support system than that. Strategies, strategies for taking the AREs we'll get into later in a different recording. But so anyway, well, you might be wondering, actually, listener, but why not just enroll in IPAL and just do it? Why not try it? If it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. I don't know if there's any penalties for not completing the program. So, I guess it's not a bad idea, but, and maybe this is for a different discussion, but again, that's where I'm really not on board with the idea of a person trying to complete all of their AXP during the 5 years. Not enough time, and all the other points that I made before. So that's...
The thing is that when you go to school, you pay your tuition, and ideally you pay your tuition because somebody's going to be teaching you something, and that's why it's worth the money and the loans that you're taking. The IPAL system sounds like you're still doing it on your own. You're just on a big list on your university to do it, right? But it's on top of all of the hours and everything else you have to do for your program. So I don't know if it makes the tuition more valuable, or if actually it takes the value out of your tuition, because that means you will have less of that time to dedicate to the 5 years you are paying for. When you do your exams and all of those hours on your own after, you work, you get paid for the hours that you work, and ideally you put those hours in your timesheet, in your AXP timesheet, and that's a win-win. You're being paid to do your AXP. You're not paying to do your AXP.
That's a good point.
Which is a difference, right?
Yeah. The other thing, too, is that once you are practicing, a lot of offices will cover your exams if you pass them. And the exams are $210, $220 a piece. There's 6 of them. So that's over $1,200, and a lot of times people will fail 1 or 2. So, what I say, 6 times 12. What is it? What did I say? 6 times 1,200. That's about $1,500, right? Just for the exams, and then enrolling into NCARB and all that is $90 a year, and then there's this fee and that fee. All these random fees they charge you, right? So that's not a small amount of money, and if you can get an office to pay for that, I would do that. Maybe IPAL Pay covers the exams. If they do, then that's great. But still, most of the content on the exams is so different from the content you learn in school that you're going to school for 2 different things almost at that point. Almost. And it's why not just do these things when you're actually going to learn them? Because the ideas and the problems you have to address in the exams, until you've gone through it and practiced, they exist purely as abstract things. And they're really difficult and therefore it's difficult to pass the exams because of that. But also it means you're not truly learning it. You're learning in some kind of weird, let me memorize this acronym to pass the test thing. Well, that's great, but that's not the best way to gain knowledge.
Well, and if you're trying to get that professional knowledge while you're in school, there is already so much going on in your head that you're just going to add that other layer of things to deal with. So unless you're really good and you're a fast learner and really good at multitasking, and you don't care about sleeping too much, and you sure, do it. But for someone who did her AXP and exams after, I could not imagine have found enough time to do it while I was doing my 5-year program.
And the thing is, if you're talking about trading off time for putting that time into your studio work, your designs, focusing on your ideas and how you think the building should be designed and things like this, versus IPAL, ARE stuff. In the long run, and the architecture is a long game, putting time and effort into your designs is way, way, way more substantial for you personally, for the work you produce, for all the buildings you're going to create, for the people that will inhabit your buildings, and for your career. Right? It's going to serve you much better to go out into the world and have that as a really strong foundation rather than some weak sauce version of professional practice knowledge. You will gain that knowledge in professional practice. It won't be equivalent to you actually doing it when you're older. And as you said, now you've sacrificed a fundamental knowledge you need to have that will serve you to produce better things and also move up in your career much more quickly. You'll see after the first 5 years or so of practicing, the people who actually kill it are the ones that stay dedicated, stay thirsty, and the ones who have that really strong sensibility of problem solving and thinking, which is not the same thing as what you need to study for the exams or necessarily interning.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, once you graduate, what's going to land you your first job is going to be your portfolio, and not the fact that you completed your XP hours. 100%. No one's going to care about that.
100%.
It's actually knowing who you are as a designer, because going through those 5 years, you got to put yourself in different situations, and you need to learn about yourself, what you're capable of, what your strengths and your weaknesses are. And if you're being distorted with this whole XP stuff, it's just you're never gonna know.
I mean, even as an employer, when they're hiring someone, and we've done episodes about we're gonna do an episode about interviewing, so you should let us know your questions. We've done episodes about portfolios and stuff like that, so have a look. But for employers, if they're smart, they're gonna hire someone for the long term, and so they want to know if you can think. They want to know if you can work in a team, and those things. The first one is developed mainly in your design experience in school. And any kind of, again, light version of professional knowledge, they don't really care about, because it's old employer who's 50 to 23-year-old, look, you got a long ways to go. You'll learn all this stuff. I'll teach you this stuff. I'm not concerned about, he has 6 months of experience doing, project management or not. I don't really care. I'll teach you that. But can you think, and can you work in a team?
The other thing too is that, if you're about to start school right now and you're thinking about AXP and exams, to be honest, we don't know what those things are going to be in 5 years from now. So
that's a good point.
They recently changed the exams. They recently renamed IDP by AXP. They're changing their requirements. Things are evolving. The new generations of architects are evolving, so it's great to get a jump start if you feel like you absolutely want to, but I really would not worry about it until you're ready to actually do it.
And one of the more specific points that Keisha brought up was I was looking, how much should the IPAL program factor into my decision making from one school to the next? So school A, I like. School B is pretty good. I don't like as much, but it has IPAL. Fucking don't worry about IPAL, because all the stuff that you would do in it, you can do on your own. And it should not be on your radar in terms of choosing between the schools you want. The other stuff is way more important. Okay, should we go back to the
yes.
voicemail?
In addition to that, I think New York is okay, but I find it kind of cold. I don't really like the winters here, so that kind of led me to considering studying out of state.
Oh, yeah. Let me say, first of all, that she is correct. The winters in New York are fucking cold. It's sometimes you step outside
why?
And your eyeballs hurt. That's how cold it is.
Says a guy with the small eyeballs. So imagine my eyeballs, how they felt.
That's true. How does it work?
It was painful.
It hurts. It's your eyes freeze in your skull. But anyway, let's continue.
Should I go to an out-of-state school, or should I consider an IPAL program? But in addition to that, I really was considering moving out of New York because of the weather, because I don't really like the winters. But I do know that in-state tuition is way, way cheaper than studying out of state. For the most part, I'll be paying for college on my own.
All right, so we kind of already answered a part of that, which is the IPAL program should not even be part of the discussion, really, in terms of these factors. And if you're looking at a tuition difference, then definitely go with the one that's going to make more sense financially. If you're talking about tuition on IPAL, right?
And the way I would look at it is also like, okay, you're going to put that school name on your resume to get a job, right? So. If you're going to base your decision on which one to go to, well, pick the one that most likely your employer is going to know or is going to think highly of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, so if you're looking at like a school that no one knows of and has IPAL versus one that many people know of, choose the one that a lot of people know.
Yeah, it will help you out.
And, she mentioned the weather a few times, which I think is great and kind of funny, but it's true that when you're choosing a school to go to, the weather is a big factor, and in New York, it's not easy. But I think, I have to look this up, I'm not sure, but I think actually if you're a resident of New York, and once you... When we were there, once you've lived in New York State for 3 years, then you are a resident, right? And if you are a resident in that state, you get free tuition, I think, to all of these state and city colleges. I think, or city colleges.
I don't know.
I think that might be the case. That sounds outrageous, but I remember, because when I was doing grad school, this happened right after I graduated, and everyone in my class was like, oh, fuck, I wish I had just deferred for a year. And I think that might be the case.
I would say that, you also have to think of, okay, if you go study by the beach, are you really going to be focusing on the beach, the lifestyle, or your actual time in school? I studied in Paris, and we had seasons, and the time it was cold, I was actually good because I would just stay inside and, work more. I wouldn't feel bad not going out. The other thing is, it's New York City, man. Like, you're studying architecture, everything is there. Like, I think that's pretty awesome to study in a place like that. If you go in the middle of fucking nowhere, like, okay, great. But you're not going to see architecture. You're not going to be, like, surrounded by it. So, winter sucks, but at the same time, you're in school. You're going to be so busy.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good point. I mean, you're going to be inside the studio more often than anything else. It's tough. I mean, 5 years, it's a long time to be in a place that if you really don't like the weather, especially if you came from the Caribbean,
it's a big change.
That's got to be a shock.
I mean, it sounds like she's, very dedicated and super excited to start school. So I would say you can have everything aligned, all the good stuff aligned. You really got to pick which one matters most. Yeah. I don't think the weather is what matters most to her. So.
All right, let's go back.
I don't really have any architecture experience. I did study civil engineering for 2 years prior to moving here. And what I experienced during those 2 years and then going to work in the field afterwards, I felt like nothing I learned during that time was actually applicable to the field. So I feel like at least when I study architecture, I would want to choose a school that at least allows for some amount of preparation in the professional world. Like, you wouldn't go out there and just feel completely lost. I mean, I know I've listened to you guys say there's a big gap between, like, academic and professional, but I think I would prefer to have at least some kind of preparation or some kind of idea, especially since for the most part I'm like new to architecture in the US.
Yeah, no, it's actually interesting to hear that in another profession they have a similar issue when what you learn in school isn't necessarily directly applicable to the real life profession.
The good thing is, in her case, she's really concerned with the fact that she's going to graduate and be older, 5 years older than some of these other kids. But most employers don't really care. Again, there's a lot of transfer students who come in at around her age or will graduate at her age in the same boat as her. So it's really not an issue. Once you get out into practice, there's all different kinds of people with different ages and whatever, different stories. So it really makes no difference. The only thing that matters is your portfolio. That's like 70% of it. And then 30% is how many years of experience you have. And when I say years of experience, I don't mean interning during the summer or working part-time during school. I mean like professional, solid, full-time, 70-hour a week years do you have? And when you graduate from undergraduate school, pretty much everyone has somewhere between 0 to 2 years, and there's no difference in terms of hiring a 0 to 2 year person. No employer who knows what they're doing would hire a person with 2 years of experience with a okay portfolio over someone with 0 years of experience and a good portfolio. They won't do it. Even 0 to 4 years, it's all kind of like, yeah, you're still new, you're still new. So, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's good that it's good and sad that she's experienced this kind of like non-overlap in the same field in engineering, but at least now she's aware that is something that exists and that might happen. You could go a route where you go to a school that's more on the professional training path, right? But again, I wouldn't really necessarily worry about that, and that is again something you will gain once you come out. So
the typically city colleges are the places where they are more technical schools. Sorry, I'm slurring a little bit. I got some beer in me. It's just really great. You should listen to me. I'm drinking beer. The city colleges are typically the kinds of places where the information is more technical and what you learn is much more practice-based. The City College of New York, since she's in New York, I'll talk about it, is not, it's a unique place in that it's not like that. It's more like a proper university. And they have extremely talented and important people as faculty. I mean, I went there, so I'm biased. But so city colleges would typically be the route if you're interested in just that. But most of the discussion, most of the things that we're talking about, the 5-year program, it's not a city college route. Like the city college route is like 2 years or something like that, and you get not an architecture degree, but maybe it's 4 years or 3 years or something, but it's some kind of other degree, and then you go practice or whatever. But 5 years for undergraduate school, you're going to be hard-pressed to find a 5-year program that is probably as practice-oriented as what she's wanting, which is not a bad thing. It's not to sound discouraging at all. It just means that the 5-year program, you're going to be learning other things. Like, the issue is one of perception. So I get the sense for this person, and I could be projecting, but for some people, they enter architecture school and they're very concerned because they don't know anything about architecture. I had the same concerns. Actually, it's a lie. I didn't really give a fuck. But a lot of people have those concerns when they enter undergraduate school. The guy next to me, Steve, he's actually worked for a couple of years before. He can draw floor plans and he knows how to use a scale. I would bet, with 90% certainty, that person is going to do worse by the end of the 5-year program than you as a person with no experience, because that person already thinks he knows what architecture is, and the 5-year program is really where you learn what it's about, and your brain is going to be you're going to explode with how many different things you're going to learn. Your mind will be much more open. You'll be surprised. This is the problem with, in a larger sense of trying to decide too much about what school or what you want to study before you enter the school, is that people think I want to obtain this thing. Let me go to this school and get that thing, right? I know I want this thing, and that school over there offers it more specifically, that. So I'm going to go there. But I'm telling you, from 0 to 5 years, from the age of 18 to 23 or 23 to 28, its math is right. When you graduate, you're going to be a completely different person.
And it's not like the training you get, it's not like, you go to beauty school and you learn how to cut hair and do makeup. It's not as straightforward, and it's so much more of a personal process.
And philosophical.
And sure.
Conceptual.
That, it's normal, and you need to give it some time.
And again, I think it's a fair point to make again that those aspects of the architecture education will serve you much greater in almost even the immediate term, and also the long term once you graduate, so professionally, right?
Yeah.
The other thing she brought up was, but that said, there are different kinds of schools. So SciArc is a pretty well-known.
I was just going to say,
school.
If you're not on the super conceptual, really out there, definitely don't go to SciArc, for example.
So for this person, I would say definitely don't go to SciArc, Star Arc is great for some people, but for what she's looking at, I would not recommend it. It's on that extreme end of the spectrum. And I'll speak with her directly for more specific suggestions, I think. But so there are differences in schools, I would say, but generally speaking, a 5-year program that is as skill-based as kind of what she's probably thinking usually doesn't exist, because the institutions just aren't built for that, and they aren't built for that for a reason, I would say, even if they fuck it up most of the time. Was there anything else you brought up in this last bit that I'm missing?
No, but if you don't get that professional training from the classes and the things you're learning in school, that's where doing internships could give you a little flavor of that before you graduate. Mm-hmm. And I think, again, something to consider about, picking New York or out-of-state school is that if you're doing an internship in the place in which you're already living and going to school, probably make your life easier. You won't have to figure out where am I gonna live, how am I gonna afford this, or trying to convince a firm to hire you if you're out of state or something like that. So staying in New York, there is a ton of advantages. One of them is that there is hundreds of firms, so you're looking to do different types of internship in different size firm, different types of projects. You have a wide panel, and they see that you're a local person, so there is some advantages to that, and I think it is to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know she didn't ask this, but I don't think she's been accepted to any schools yet. She's probably, the application processes are happening at the end of this year. But for her, I would say definitely play up your uniqueness in terms of where you're from and everything like that. I think diversity in this profession is a really powerful and important thing, not just because of the recent changes toward everyone being much more fair, but also it's in a creative profession. The people in groups, they need different kinds of people around to stimulate different perspectives and thoughts and things like this, and that could be quite powerful.
Well, and she has a technical background too within the civil engineering, that she has. So that could be very interesting to a certain school who are looking for people who have different talents.
Yeah. And interning is a great idea, but do it later on. I'd say in the program, let yourself fully enjoy the idea of the process of being a total blank slate and questioning everything around you for the first few years, because that's such an important part of the developmental process.
Yeah, and it's just 5 years in your career. You're going to spend the rest of your life working on projects. So, you're spending money in tuition and try to get as much of it for yourself as possible.
And I know in the moment it feels like a gap between a 24 and 28-year-old or whatever the gap that she was talking about. It feels big, but it's not
that much.
It's not much, and it won't even matter at all. It won't matter from day one, likely, and it won't matter especially after the first 5 years of practicing. It
won't matter, and the thing is, you're probably going to be someone who's going to try harder than a person that's 5 years younger with the same degree. Mm-hmm. So really, I wouldn't worry about it.
All right, let's get the next bit.
And I also wanted to know, you did mention in one of your episodes that people should consider transferring more. So I was thinking about what if I start at an architecture school in New York, since I'm already in New York, and, just see how it goes, and then decide, that I can transfer to somewhere else, somewhere warmer. Would that be easier than straight out moving out the state? Because I don't wanna underestimate the process of moving out the state, because I've never really moved around much here. So I don't want to underestimate it or gloss over it, and then it's a way more stressful process added to how hard architecture school already seems. So those were just the other things I wanted to continue saying. Thank you guys again for listening. I absolutely love your podcast, and just keep doing what you're doing. Bye.
I'd love to talk to this person and find out her life story, because I want to know, did she move from the Caribbeans to directly to New York City?
That's pretty rare transition.
Because let me tell you, if you made that transition, you can move pretty much anywhere in the United States. You can move anywhere in the United States without a problem. Well, there are political issues with some states, but you could move, to any of the less racist states without a problem. Like if you can survive in New York City, you can survive anywhere in the U.S. And probably a lot of places abroad. I mean, if you move to like China, then it's like it'd be pretty radical. But if you can make it in New York, it's pretty easy, and anywhere else. And New York has crazy requirements for renters, and we almost could do a podcast about that. But it's like when you move there to qualify to rent for an apartment, first of all, living there is crazy expensive, of course, and then you have to supply proof of current employment and that you're making 80 times the monthly rent has to be your salary. And if you can't prove that, or no, I think it's 40 times. If you can't prove that, then you have to have guarantors that make 80 times the monthly rent. So if you're living in New York already, then transition from New York to like, I don't know, Ithaca or California or Oregon or whatever, like not a problem for you. So that's the first thing I would say to that.
God, burping. We're talking. I think she brought up a good point. I mean, moving out of state, if she's established where she is right now in New York, it is a big deal. It is a big decision. And if you take that decision, it doesn't work out.
But if they got warmer weather, man.
Yeah, they also have earthquakes, so maybe stay where you are.
Well, the other thing to do is, just go. Well, she said she doesn't like the winters. Not really much you can do.
Well, but then, you can get some cool sweaters and
just
big
buy a big
coats.
coat. Let's go to Uniqlo. Buy a coat. Problem solved.
What were we talking
I'm
about?
sorry.
I forgot my thought.
I mean, when it's really cold out in New York, you just don't go outside. That's the thing. Or you just run from one door to the next, and then, that's it.
So the other thing she mentioned is that we said in another recording that, encourage people to transfer. I'm pretty sure we said that right. You should transfer, but maybe like within like your own school, like between different types of studios or things like that. Transferring from one university to another, I would not recommend doing that. Because it's it's like living in a city and moving to like another new city where you don't know anybody. It's I don't think it's a good move. Within 5 years, it's probably not necessary.
Yeah, and if we weren't clear, I don't know what recording should listen to, but if we weren't clear in that past recording regarding transferring, then apologies. But I don't think we meant to say that more people should try and transfer from one school to a next in different cities. If you hate where you are, then yeah, do that. But outside of that very specific situation of really wanting to leave where you are, then don't. It's a huge headache, as you've pointed out. And also, especially for architects, in school, during those 5 years, you're building up your initial connection and network and your family, really. You become really, really close with the people around you. And so, the idea of kind of ripping out all of those roots and going to a different place is not something I would plan on. Right. Do it if you need to, and again, if you don't like the school that you're at, and there's a school that's better for you and stuff. But I would not have that be part of your planned future for sure. I wouldn't do that. I would just choose a school that you think is going to work for you from the beginning.
If you're looking for like diversity during your 5-year program, I would say programs abroad or taking classes in other major maybe could like give you something else. But definitely don't go between schools, because I think you're going to lose more feathers than you're going to win. So,
And I'm wondering what else you could do, but in terms of like dealing with the winters in New York. I mean, you need a down jacket. You need to know how to get from inside the building down to the subway really quickly. What else do you need to know?
Well, just try to live near the school so you limit the amount of time you're outside.
There's that too. I mean, the thing is, like you said, when you're in fifth year or first year or whatever during the winters, you're not anywhere else except for studio.
You're going to be in school most of the time, so I really would not wonder. And it's 5 years.
Go to the bars. That's a great way. Just carry a flask with you. Keep that going in the system. You'll stay warm all winter long. And the good thing is that if you're boozed up, you can, meander around the streets like a flaneur and absorb the city that way. If you don't know that word, you're going to learn it.
Okay, no more beers
That's what
for
they
you.
did. That's what they did. Right? Being a flaneur. Right. What does that mean? It's a French word.
It just.
I mean, you kind of like stroll around and absorb the city around you and think about it conceptually and like think about the mysteries of the universes through the city. And I guess back in the day, you mostly did that drunk. So it's a twofer.
Right.
You're actually it's a threefer. You're staying warm. You're getting to learn about the city and therefore learning about your career.
I would actually try, if I was her, I would probably try and turn that thing that she's kind of apprehensive of, which is the cold winters in New York, into something fun and that could be useful for her, for her degree.
Mm-hmm.
Like learning, like living in a way that she didn't grow up living into. There is things you can learn from that, and it's only by experiencing it that you will fully understand it.
Yeah. It's tough. 5 years though.
But you can always get out after 5 years. It's not like that's like you're signing up for your whole life there.
So what I would do in her situation, assuming she has not applied to schools yet, apply to as many schools as possible, then see what options you have, and then reach back out to us, or decide then. Don't preemptively limit your options. I know it costs money to apply, but not that much money, and it'd probably be worth it to apply to as many places as possible, and then see how it goes.
Yeah, and if possible, also try and go to like the open house there, or like go meet some students who are there. Like get a sense of the culture, the things to be expecting. Like try to get a sense. Like, can you project yourself there, or is it like really not what you want?
Well, she had also asked the question, which was that she had visited some places and she was trying to get a sense of the studio culture, and she had asked some of the students, how's it here, and the students say it's great, and then she said, but do I trust the students? Like, I don't know what questions to ask to know if it really is good there. And I think there's an interesting kind of...
It is.
I'm not quite sure what you would ask. I would say that for sure going to a place not just during open house, yes, but when they're having their reviews. Because open house, they're putting on a show, right? And they're exhibiting all their work, which is great to see. But you kind of want to go during an everyday situation. One, to see how the studios are they a mess? Are they clean? Do the students are they hot studios, which means that the studios are not permanent, so the students can only be there during class time and then that's it? Or are they cold studios where everyone has their own desk that's permanent for the entire quarter, semester, or even year? The cold studios are better in my view, just to get the vibe and the smell of the place and to see how dedicated the people are. And then the other one is going during a review, going during a live and actual critique presentation to see how that goes. Is the feedback that the critics are giving, does it make sense? And even if you have no background in architecture, they might be using some kind of architecture-specific verbiage you don't know, but outside of that, is what they're saying logical? Or does it seem like they're just prima donnas making shit up out of thin air? Well, you know what? After how many years of doing all of this, the people who kind of just go on and preach and have their kind of moments and let's this and that's like they're full of shit. They're full of shit. If they can't say what they mean to say clearly to a group of architects, then they don't know what the fuck they're saying, or they're bullshitting. And so for you as a person who has no experience in this profession, if you get there and you can't understand what they're saying, or what they're saying doesn't make sense, again, excluding specific terminology, then that tells you something about the review, right? And go to as many reviews as you can. I would, go to reviews across different years. I would go to at least like maybe 4 to get a good sampling, because the reviews happen potentially differently from one school to the next. Sometimes it's a show, sometimes it's an in-depth discussion, sometimes it's really brutal in a good way, sometimes it's brutal in a bad way. And the reviews, I feel like, are a good way to get an insight into the school.
It's possible. If you don't know anything about architecture, though, I don't know how much that actually tells you, because you probably won't know how to judge it as much. It's like, looking at a model and like, does it look like a good model? Yeah, how would I know? I don't know what a model is supposed to look like. You know?
I understand what you're saying, but I think it is different in that the review is a political, it's a people thing, right? It's a social event, And if you're decent at reading people, that's how you can tell. You might not actually understand what they're saying, but through the body language, the tone, the silences, the awkwardness, again, how arrogant they sound and whatever, you can tell how
yeah, but it also
going.
depends if, the reviewers are guests or the actual teacher of the school. So there's a lot of parameters. I would definitely, if you go to try and meet students, work on a list of questions before you go. Don't, just show up and hope to find some information. Have some kind of checklist, things you want to know, what's their day life, what time do they start, what time do they go to bed, do they work a lot, what kind of classes do they have, is there anything that they wish would be different, anything that they love, and anything that they really don't like. Ask about the great stuff, the usual stuff, and the bad stuff. You kind of want to be able to have a big picture of the school.
And you can just ask them point blank, what's the studio culture like? You yourself might really be unfamiliar, or the term studio culture might feel kind of alien because you haven't gone through it, but to them, they know that. And they'll tell you, it's really great. It can vary from teacher to teacher. It's super competitive. There's a lot of backbiting, or competitive in a good way. Or it's we don't have our own desks all the time, so it's just total chaos. It's really hard to focus. That's a big factor.
You could also try and meet with fifth year students, so you can kind of understand, okay, well, in first year, you're probably going to do more of that. Second year, the school focuses on this. Fifth year, right now we're doing that. So you can have an overall view of what the 5 years are going to look like. Because you're not just signing up for 1 year, you're signing up for 5. So. Yeah.
And the other thing too is you want to reach out to people that are going to be honest with you. So I think a fifth year student is a great thing.
I think students will probably be the most objective ones.
Because
or sincere. They won't have anything to gain from lying to you.
I think that's true. Of course, the problem with talking to a student is that they're only a student. And I would reach out to professors. And, I think as a student, you feel like all the professors are part of the school and they're all on the same team, but you'd be surprised, especially in the part-time pool group of faculty. We all migrate between schools very often, and we have no allegiance to different schools. We go to where we like to be, and just because we're at one place does not mean we like that institution. And so I think as a student, it's surprising to realize that. It's surprising to hear your teacher say things about the school that they're teaching at that whereas before you thought they were totally, green and orange or whatever, green and gold kind of colors, right? But that's not always the case. So I would reach out to professors or even part-time professors. I would not reach out as opposed to reaching out to head of departments or anyone in the administrative kind of area.
They're going to try and sell you the school.
Because it's their job to sell the school. So you're not going to get a totally transparent view of it. But part-timers and even full-timers will.
Other people good to reach out to is find alumni of the school. And, you can...
Yeah.
Well, it could be helpful to, you can actually reach out to someone who did the IPAL thing and, see if that really helped them out.
Yeah.
Or...
I wouldn't, because the people who go through IPAL and finish IPAL are going to preach IPAL.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I just... fucking IPAL. I don't think it's all kinds of shadiness, and it's just I don't know. It's false promises, I think. I don't really know what it is. It's not good. It's not good. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, anything else you want to add to this? How long have we been going for? It feels like...
1 hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, man, we got to wrap it up. All right, everybody. Keisha, thanks for reaching out again. This was super fun. Thanks for leaving your different voicemails. And we had a pleasure going through it. We hope it was helpful. And we'll email you regarding more specific things. And to everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. Even though this was a conversation addressing one person's specific answers, I assume that it's going to be of interest to a wider audience. And if you have any other questions that we did not answer, then you should reach out to us. So the phone number again is 213-222-6950. Go straight to voicemail, and we'll have a dialogue about whatever's going on in your life. right?
Let's talk about your life.
All right. Other than that, subscribe, like, leave a review. Those means a lot. And we will talk to you again next week, right?
Will do.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.